I want to open up with a quote from Demi Lovato, and she says, mental health is something that we all need to talk about, and we need to take the stigma away from it. So let's raise the awareness. Let's let everybody know it's okay to have a mental illness and addiction problem. Okay. I thought that was really good because for me, I struggled with the stigma. I struggled with it, with the mental health, and I was trapped in the addiction, and the mental illness didn't look real good when you wear it. You know, when people see you and they say, "Oh, he's got a mental health problem," or "She's got a mental health problem," you know, that's a hard dress to wear. You know what I'm saying? And so the League of Extraordinary People was created for individuals like me who actuality kind of got to figuring out that we are extraordinary people, being the fact that we're resilient, you know, and that was before I even knew what the definition of the word resilient was, you know. So we're going to just keep this organic, like Melissa said today, and it's just like each one, reach one, teach one, because I had a slogan, you know, that I kept me focused, that I stole from somebody else, that I said that if alcohol and drugs was the answer, then what was the question? Because I got so tired of using, and I got so tired of being used by the drugs and alcohol and everybody else that seemed like they came into my life. And so I'm going to open it up with the League of Extraordinary People's approach to the guiding principles of trauma-informed care. And so trauma-informed care is a modality of intervention so that so we can actually take it to do some introspection work on ourselves, and to have some principles to go about it, because I never had principles before. I had a lot of ideas, but I really never did have principles, and principles is what makes the world go around. And so today, our first principle we're going to talk about is safety, and the League of Extraordinary People's approach to safety is to create an atmosphere within the League of Extraordinary People's program sites that's free from abuse, physical, verbal, emotional, and psychological. So when you're going out there throughout your day, the principles are for you guys to use, and it's also for me to use, so that I can remember I need to be safe no matter what, you know, and I need to look at how I talk to people, how I interact with people, and that's physical, verbally, emotionally, and psychologically. And number two, trustworthiness and transparency, to create an atmosphere within our program sites that foster trust within the participant community and allows the participant community to trust the League of Extraordinary People through consistency of service, providing, and transparency of established policy and procedures. The next one is peer support. And so in this journey, everybody needs somebody that looks like you, talks like you, walks like you, to provide support to the program participants, not only, you know, to yourself, but other members in the group, from an empathetic, anti-racist, trauma-informed harm reduction and culturally compassionate perspective, a perspective that draws heavily upon the relevant lived experiences of our leadership, staff, and volunteers as credible messages for resiliency. This is huge, you guys, really, really huge, because if you don't have somebody that looks like you and talks like you and walks like you, and that you can be able to call at any time and be transparent with, and being trusting with, and knowing that they have safety at your best interest, not their egos or their attitudes, that's what needs to happen, because we was created for relationships. We wasn't created to mock people because they didn't look like us. So also collaboration and mutuality, to intentionally make space for the collaboration of ideas across the League of Extraordinary People as an organization in partnership with organizational allies, in a concerted effort to bring all relevant perspectives to the table. And so that's just like hanging out with people that look like you and think like you. Empowerment, voice, and choice, to support the personal and professional development of the League of Extraordinary People members, staff, volunteers, and to foster a culture within the organization that honors the voices of all members. Remember, to foster a culture of all members, and that means leadership, staff, volunteers, partners, and program participants. There's nobody bigger than anybody in here. It's all about each one, reach one, teach one. You know, we all came in here with the same thing, and that's a human body. So in our last one is our cultural, historical, and gender issues. The fundamental element missing from most community service providing efforts, for most community services providing efforts that focus on people of color, is a lack of specific attention to the trauma that has been endured in the context of racial identity, culture, identity, and gender identity. And I believe this is a platform for the reason why I'm doing this. I see your head a little frowned up there, B. Is there something, you got a question about the context of this last one? I know you got to take your microphone off mute.
No, I'm concentrating and writing it down, look.
Okay, good. But that was really kind of the platform that I took. So for some of you that know me and the others that don't know me, you know, I spent almost 2 years, 17, 18 months in a behavior modification treatment program. And that was after I had swallowed a quarter ounce of crack cocaine and died and was paralyzed. And I laid up in a hospital up at Harborview in the trauma unit, trying to figure out what was my next step. And I finally listened to that voice that I never really listened to before, because we all have two voices in our head, you know, one that says yeah, and the other one that says no. And so I listened to that small voice, and I found out that was the voice of God within me. And it was actually his spirit. And that led me to leave that hospital that night and to go and enroll into this program. But how I got into the program was through another guy that was in work release with me, and we was in a continuum of care program. And I asked him, had he ever got clean and sober? Because I've been to about, oh God, I don't even want to say it, but maybe 20 different treatment programs. And they never just seemed to work for me. And he told me he went to one, the Seattle's Union Gospel Mission, and they had a behavior modification program. And it was a 9-month program, and it was intensive. And they had process groups every week. And then they had signs and they had mirrors, and yeah, they got you to focus on yourself. And I didn't know if I needed something that tough, but that's where I really needed to be. And so I left that hospital and went and got involved in that program. And that's how I got here today. So today, you guys, we're going to start with this book called Emotional Sobriety. My book has duct tape on it, you guys, and it's got flat, you know, yeah, it's been well worked, okay? So I've read this book quite a bit. And so today, for the first time, what we're going to do is I'm going to cover the majority of a lot of this book, and that's the introduction in the first chapter. And that's because some people might not have the books. And so we just want to help them along. I want to help them along because I have to remember, and Melissa keeps putting this in my head, remember where you was at, Alfred, you know, back in 2004. And I really had to reflect on that because that was important. And so this is a book that I used at Shik Hospital when I created the most successful continuum of care program in the 75-year history of the hospital. I went from being the counselor that worked there from 11 to 6 at night to being a continuing care program manager, and went from an hourly wage to a salary. And that was all different in my life, especially at the age I was at. And this book is one of the ones that I used for 3 different classes that I had. But I just used this for one class. I had 3 classes. So if anybody's got their book, they can follow along with me. I'm in the introduction starting at page X5 or in actuality 15. And so it says, and so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be running through this book. I'm going to cover this book, and I'll stop and ask for questions, but also too, in your chat box, submit questions. You can stop me, raise your hand, say, hold up here, Alfred, you know, I want to talk about this in some detail because I know more than what this book is talking about here. So it says, it's the introduction. The book is Emotional Sobriety by Tion Dayton, and she's probably written between 30 to 35 books. She's a psychodrama therapist, and so they actually take you back into actual whatever traumatized you or whatever adversity you had. Because sometimes our bodies will hold the score, but not sometimes. Our bodies hold everything. Our bodies like a sponge, you guys. And really don't let your domestication, I'm not taking a quote out of the book, The Four Agreements, don't let your domestication and the dream of the planet have you in a place so cognitively that you don't understand where you're at and what needs to be done on your part and how you got there. And hopefully I'm going to explain to you how we kind of got into the situations we're at, where emotional sobriety is so important in our life. So it says first, for the first 25 years, and this is Tion Dayton in the introduction, she says, I've been traveling throughout the country speaking and doing workshops for people in recovery from family dysfunction and the psychological and emotional trauma that follows in its wake, as well as for therapists who are working tirelessly with clients who have been affected by addiction, abuse, and relationship trauma. Most of our wounds, when we speak of relationship trauma, are wounds of the heart, mind, and spirit. Really, you guys underline that the wounds in the heart, mind, and spirit, okay? And they are held in the muscle tissue of the body and are imprinted in our neurological systems. You hear what I said? It's imprinted on our neurological systems. We're literally wired to experience love, warmth, and a sense of well-being through closeness and to fear abandonment. And we have evolved in this biology of love and fear because of our very survival depends on our ability to form lasting and durable attachments, to maintain nourishing and sustaining relationships. And that's why the emotions associated with these survival relationships are so intense. We literally would not survive without them. So what this is doing is, hopefully with you guys, is creating the importance of relationships and about things that happen to us in our journey in life. And they're actually wounds. And a lot of us still have a lot of open wounds on us. You know, if you was to actually go to a hospital and you was honest, did you hear what I said? This is a foreign word to a lot of us, right? And if you was honest, you know, and you told the doctor everything that was wrong with you, you would look like somebody that just came out of Afghanistan or something, you know what I mean? And just would be bandaged from head to toe. And so I want you guys to remember that when you go out throughout the day, is that have I been honest about my ailments, and especially my emotional ones? And so it says love is both the cruelty and the cure. Did you hear that? Love is both the cruelty and the cure. When our hearts are wounded through disappointment or loss, love restores us to comfort and balance. Fear triggers us into self-protective responses like fight, anger, rage, flight, taking off, disassociation, or freeze, shutting down, withdrawing, while love and caring soothes us and brings us back to a state of equilibrium. That's the reason why everybody, you know, once they get clean and sober, they want to get in a relationship, you know, for love, you know, and that's just a bandage over something that you need severe surgery with, you need to see a surgeon about. And so it says we are in a constant state of healing small and large insults to our sense of self, our sense of relationship, and our sense of personal and worldly order. Perhaps we suffer from not being loved enough or in the right way, or losing attention, liability upon which we depend, or our orderly and familiar world has ruptured somehow. These wounds, unfortunately, don't necessarily disappear on their own, particularly if they occurred before our own age of reason. That is, during early childhood. Just as there's nothing that succeeds like success, as unfair as it seems, pain all too often begets more pain. In any case, if we can't seem to live comfortably in our adult relationships, we may be recreating familiar patterns that carry the echoes of hidden pain from the past. What we need to do and understand these emotional traumas is to be willing to feel our sore spots and long enough to attach words to them, develop emotional literacy, and process them within our thinking minds. This is really the foundation of emotional sobriety. Do I need to say that again? You know, to develop emotional literacy and process them with our thinking minds, we also need to identify the problematic patterns that we're repeating, even at times against our better judgment, and work through the pain and confusion that are driving them so we can learn new and more successful patterns of relating. We need to mine our own issues for information about ourselves, life, and relationships, and become what we call adapt livers, studiers of life, people who learn and grow from adversity and turn it into strength. And that's where we can use the term, and I coined the word resilience. We have nothing less than a medicine chest inside of us that is designed to regulate body rhythms, moods, emotional health, if we can learn to use it. Countless times I found myself wanting to be able to say, just read this. It would guide you through, help you understand what happened to you, what happened to your family, what happened to your nervous system. It will lay out a simple plan to turn these affects around. Does anybody have any questions right now, or does this provoke any thoughts?
I don't necessarily have any questions. I would definitely say it provoked thought in that I like how you started out the conversation with kind of have two voices in your head. It connected a lot of the ideas that were, at least for me, that were read in chapter 1. When we talk about the principles that you illuminated also, I have a lot of just of those components that fuse together. And the family that I have, that I would say has the most generational trauma, comes from my maternal side. And that's a very like Native American type of culture. And my grandma always told us, and my daughter specifically, like there's a white wolf and a dark wolf, and it's which one you feed. That interestingly enough, that's the family that we connect the most with, but oftentimes have to also build the most boundaries around our communication. And so when you said that love is both the curse and the cure, that brought me to that, because I hold that very dearly, where you can connect so strongly, yet need to have boundaries in place for each other to not spread or continue to infiltrate that pain to other people in your family. So I don't want to dominate the conversation. That was kind of what my thoughts have led when you've read all this so far.
That's good work too, and that's a lot of hard work too. I had to really do that too myself. That's the reason why I had to go to a behavior modification place. I needed some behaviors modified, and I needed some intense scrutiny in order for me to modify those behaviors, because I couldn't think in the context that you're thinking about, because I was more impulsive and compulsive, and yeah, so let's go to the next section, how experience becomes biology and biology becomes experience. I'm not going to cover every detail, but I'm going to pick out some stuff. So this talks about neuroscience is now lending scientific authority to what is intuitively guided treatment approaches for many of us in the addiction fields for decades. We have understood and recognized how emotional trauma changes not only the mind and the heart of a person, but the body as well. How living with chronic emotional pain affects what we now know to be our limbic system. How when the limbic system is impacted, our ability to regulate our emotions is undermined, and why we can't just get over it when we have been impacted by the repeated mobilization of our own fear and stress response. How many people in there know anything about the limbic system? B, you know something about it?
Well, just that this is the area of the brain where our emotions are governed, and that this area of our brain develops before our left side of the brain, or the reasoning part of the brain, develops. And it answers the question of why I have felt dominated by my feelings. Perhaps because this is the part of the brain that developed first, retained immediate memory and reactions, and set up the struggle that I may have with the other side of my brain.
Okay. So they said here, it says the ability to self-regulate, to bring ourselves into balance, is key to emotional sobriety. But when our limbic system has become deregulated through chronic stress or crisis, when our emotional switch gets stuck on, our emotional retrostat loses some of its capacity to regulate itself. When we have a hard time regulating ourselves, our moods, relationships, life, and emotional balance are affected. And research in neuroscience is at a place where it can now truly be helpful through advances in technology. We can actually get a picture of how the brain works. How many of you guys didn't actually know anything about how your brain works? Anybody? How many people's interested in finding out? Right. How many people's interested in finding out how your brain works? And do you think actually it's essential to finding out how your brain works in order to understand about emotional sobriety? Okay. So and the reason why I say that, because some of you guys know that I'm a nerd, and an introvert, but the real deal is because neuroscience has a whole lot more to do about our emotional sobriety than we think. And so cognition, our mental health, how they always talking about there's something wrong with your psychological abilities. Well, actuality in the introduction of this book is speaking more to our neuroscience instead of our cognitive abilities. That's the underlying issue here, you guys. And so if you want to really know more about your emotional sobriety, look at the neuroscience of your limbic brain, the neuroscience of your central nervous system, the neuroscience of your autonomic nervous system. I know this might be a lot of rich information for some people that are beginners in here, but all you have to do, I want to encourage you to ask questions. There's no place in this group here where you can't ask questions and you'll be mocked or anything like that, because if that's the case, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair now, you guys, because that's how I got here. I asked questions. You know what I mean? As a matter of fact, I wasn't the sharpest dope fiend or alcoholic in town. Somebody had to teach me how to push the pipe, just to tell you, how sharp I really was. You know what I mean? If somebody didn't tell me that I needed to push the pipe, then I would have never pushed the pipe, And so I think that in a lot of areas around emotional sobriety, I think we're seeking some stuff that in actuality that we've never been informed of in the beginning that was really at stake or at play. So we're not here because we lack something. We're here because they didn't give us the information. And so in essence, you guys, emotional sobriety, it has a lot more to do with the environment that we grew up in and the people that we grew up around. Does that make sense? Okay. And they said the essence of emotional sobriety, you guys, is good self-regulation. So check this out, you guys. So how many of you guys got a car without a gas gauge? Uh-huh. You right? You wouldn't be riding too long, right? So that's the whole thing about emotional sobriety and self-regulation. It means that we have mastered those mind and body skills that allows us to balance our moods, nervous systems, appetite, sexual drive, and sleep, and that we've developed the ability to experience our inner worlds without running them, so that we can come to understand what makes us tick. Emotional sobriety also means that we have learned how to tolerate our intense emotions without acting out in dysfunctional ways, clamping down and foreclosing on our feeling world, or self-medicating. And self-medicating and compulsive behaviors reflect a lack of good self-regulation. So how many of you guys did your parents sit you down and discuss this with you? Who got the software updates in the beginning? Huh? Did your parents look more like Ray, Pookie, and Shaniqua, and they was just ad-libbing? You know what I mean? And you've seen them acting out in all kinds of dysfunctional ways. Does that make sense? Yeah. How many of you guys are actually holding that personal and actually that's stopping you from growing and developing? And did you have to confront that part of yourself? Or were you too afraid to confront that part of yourself? So that's something to think about when we get to talking about how experience becomes biology and biology becomes experience. Notice how it says how experience becomes biology and biology becomes experience. And that's on page XB11B. I see you looking. That's still in the introduction. Okay. So, because I want you guys to understand that. Now I've mentioned two words that there's no other content on addressing neuroscience or biology when it comes to emotional sobriety. What I want you guys to start doing is looking at books and looking at content and being able to understand it from a different level, from a different perspective. So if the guiding principles, the first guiding principle is safety. So in order for me to be safe, then I need to understand about this application of language here in order for me to stay safe. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to go no place nowadays where I'm not safe, especially when you work in a 12-step program, because it's a little bit more focused and a little bit more critical. But if you're just out here just working on your emotional sobriety, you might still be in that la-di-da state. You follow what I'm saying? So it says here, down here in the next section, it says we can feel before we can think about what we're feeling. So now listen to this. We can feel before we can think about what we're feeling. So you got a book out, in the chapter here, or the breakdown, this paragraph said we can feel before we can think about what we're feeling. Well, so how come my mom and dad, well, I didn't really have a dad, but how come they didn't tell me about this? Why did I got to wait till I'm 200 years old to find out that, wow, man, we can feel before we can think and about what we're feeling? So what part didn't you tell me about this part? You know, so emotions, you guys, predate reason. Hello? Did you hear what it said? It says emotions predate reason. Our emotional wiring, that is our limbic system, is in place from birth, but our thinking wiring isn't in place until we're around 12. And even then we'll only begin to learn how to use it. Hello? Hello? Do you know what I mean? And this is in the introduction. You understand what I'm saying? So if you don't read the fine print, you won't get the print. You'll get imprinted. You dig what I'm saying? So it says, because of this discrepancy in development, hello, young children cannot use their thinking to make sense of and to regulate their emotional responses to life. Wow, that's deep, man. So actually, my parents should have did a little bit more parenting and a different type too, right? You know, and so we learn the skills of self-regulating initially through being in the presence of an adequate external regulator, say a mother or a father. We're dependent on them not only to actually calm us down when we're upset, but to show us how to do that through their own behavior. When we get out of balance, they woo us back into a state of balance. They hold us physically and emotionally until we restore our own calm, until our nervous system settles. Hello? Did you hear what it says? Nervous system. It didn't say nothing about any cognitive abilities. So while you're busy over there, you know, racking your brain, man, wow, man, I couldn't do this. And how can I do this? Oh, no, I did it again. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? You know, it says that until our nervous system settles. So now we're talking about neuroscience. Now we're talking about biology. We're talking about the limbic brain. And now they're bringing up the nervous system. And so it says gradually we absorb the ability to do that for our own, for ourselves. We internalize the regulation and make it our own. Well, how many people in the group here had good parents, good external regulators? Hello? Okay, so you're not alone. You're not alone. And so it says, through a successful attachment, we gradually build these skills into our own self system and make them portable, meaning that you can take them with you. Well, you guys, I didn't get that till I was over 50. And when I went to that behavior modification treatment program, when I got to be able to sit in there with myself, you know, and it was just me and God. And if you don't have a relationship with God, how about just some good orderly direction? You know what I mean? For 18 months to 2 years. I mean, to the point where I wasn't in the penitentiary. Oh, yeah, I've been to the honeycomb hideout too. You understand what I'm saying? For acting up. Or no, was I acting up or was I not given appropriate information at birth? Okay, because some of us take this stuff personal and want to be mad, well, why are you picking on me? You know what I mean? And all that kind of stuff, you know, but it says when our skills of self-regulation are well learned during childhood, they feel as if they come natural, as if we always had it. Well, if your parents is drinking alcohol, you know, which was the modern day crack back then, don't let me forget that part. You understand what I'm saying? It was just a different type of crack. The only crack that you could figure that out when you crack the cap on that bottle. You hear what I'm saying? It says crack. You know, I know B knows some crack about some stuff like that, right? And so it says, when they are not well learned, we may reach to sources outside of ourselves to provide the sense of calm and good feeling that we cannot achieve on our own, or to recreate that sense of calm that we remember having as a small child. No. Did you hear that? I got to repeat this. It says, when they are not well learned, we may reach to sources outside of ourselves to provide the sense of calm and good feeling we cannot achieve on our own. And that's the reason why we self-medicate. Did you hear what I said? That's the reason why we self-medicate. As soon as the car, hold on, let me go back to my car again. Let's get in the car. You know what I mean? Let's look at the gas gauge. Okay, now we got a gas gauge, but now it says, oh my goodness, we're almost on E. And the light get to blinking and stuff, and your heart started beating you some more, and you say, oh my goodness. You know what I mean? I got to find a gas station. But wait a second, maybe I need to pat myself down and see if I even got money for the gas station. So here's the whole deal that says, some of our society's common self-medicators are drugs, alcohol, food, sex, work, and money. And part of recovery from relationship trauma is to find and adopt healthy sources of self-regulation. So that's what I'm talking about, looking for that gas station and healthy external regulators so that we can let go of unhealthy ones. Well, nobody ever informed me anything about that. As a matter of fact, they never even told my parents about that part of it. So was emotional sobriety a conspiracy from the beginning? I'm just saying, does it sound like it was conspiracy from the beginning? And it says that good emotional sobriety reflects a well-balanced limbic system. But I think in order to have a well-balanced limbic system, you got to have a well-balanced parental environment or caregiver environment. And so it says the limbic system is the mind-body system that governs our mood, our emotional tone, appetite, and sleep cycles, to name just a few of its wide-ranging functions. Repeated painful experiences over which we have no sense of control and from which we cannot escape can over time deregulate our limbic systems. I just want to raise the hands. How many people in there think that your parents really was the ones that caused your limbic system to be deregulated? I hear you, Benita. You know what I mean? And so it says repeated painful experiences over which we have no sense of control, from which we feel we cannot escape, can over time deregulate our limbic system. When this happens, our capacity to self-regulate may be undermined. We may find ourselves depressed, anxious, irritable, or unable to regulate our moods, emotions, appetites, and behaviors. Here's where we are at risk for wanting to self-medicate in order to restore calm. We may reach for a substance or behavior, a way to feel better fast. Issues with excessive self-medications, such as with an over-reliance on food, alcohol, or drugs, or compulsive approaches to activities like sex, work, or spending in order to regulate our moods and reflect a lack of ability to comfortably self-regulate. Is this touching base with you guys? I'm hoping that it is. Any questions? No? Okay, so let's jump over here to chapter 1. What is emotional sobriety?
Alfred, would you like me to do the breathing bell for us as we transition to chapter 1 to kind of take a breath and recenter ourselves?
Thank you. This is a great tool. I'm gonna let you go ahead and share that with them, Melissa.
Yeah. So this is a really fun thing. It's called a Hoberman sphere. We use this even with preschoolers, and I've used it all the way up through high schoolers and adults. So it's a Hoberman sphere. You can find them for like $4 for $20 on Amazon. I highly recommend it as a tangible thing for people, whether we're adults or we're working with children as well as caregivers in any capacity. So it expands and it contracts. Let me scoot back here a little bit. It expands and contracts in the way that we can think about when we're taking a breath, that our lungs are expanding and contracting on the out breaths. So I'll lead us through 3 breaths. We'll do a 4-sided breath. So it's going to be in for 4, we'll hold for 4, We'll breathe out for 4 and then hold for 4. And we'll do that for 3 times together. If you can't reach the 4 seconds, don't worry about it. Just go for trying to keep consistency with breathing in, holding a few seconds, breathing out, and holding a few seconds. And we'll use this to kind of ground ourselves as we move forward. So breathing in together, holding for 4 seconds, and out for 4 seconds, and holding for 4 seconds. And we'll do that again together, in for 4 seconds, holding for 4, out for 4, and holding for 4. And one last time together. Hoberman sphere.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys ready for me? Okay. So what is emotional sobriety? So it says, curiously, the subject of emotions was studied very little until the past couple of decades. Hello, somebody. And this book was written, it came out in 2007. So it's 2020 now. So, okay. I really want you guys to capture the time periods on this. And so it says, curiously, the subject of emotion was studied very little until the past couple of decades. Previously, we were worshipers of the mind. We lived as if our emotions were incidental little things that leaked out over sentimental songs of bubble forward during evocative occasions like beach walks, graduations, or weddings. And we imagined our thoughts ruled the day and emotions followed neatly in line. Right? Wrong. But recent research in neuroscience suggests it's just the opposite. Emotions, it turns out, you guys, impacts our thinking more than our thinking impacts our emotions. Hello. The emotional part of our brain actually sends more inputs to the thinking part of our brain than the opposite. The Maso, 1999. In other words, when our emotions are out of control, so is our thinking. And when we can't bring our feeling and thinking into some sort of balance, our life and our relationships feel out of balance too. And when you're feeling like that, that's the best time to use the spirit that Melissa just showed, so you can gain your body back. It's all about self-regulating, you know what I mean? And so it's like if your car is running too hot, then you don't put water in it. Maybe you need antifreeze, right? You know what I mean? So it says, in other words, when our emotions are out of control, so is our thinking. When we can't bring our feeling and thinking into some sort of balance, our life and relationships feel out of balance too. Emotional sobriety encompasses our ability to live with balance and maturity. It means that we have learned how to keep our emotion, thoughts, and actions within a balanced range, and our thinking, feeling, and behavior are reasonably congruent. And so when it says congruent, it means like this, interact together. They work together. You know, and it says, and we're not ruled or held captive by any one part of us. We don't live on our heads and our emotions don't run us, and we aren't overly driven by unconscious or compulsive behaviors. We operate from a reasonably integrated flow and enjoy a life experience that is more or less balanced and present oriented. We're not off the wall. And at those moments when we do fly off the wall, as all of us do and probably need to now and then, we can find our way back again. And then this next one, you guys, when I was teaching this class at SHIT, it was really, really important so you guys can understand how we came to this position today where this topic of emotional sobriety has become so interesting in our lives that we feel like that we need to understand more about. It says, emotions come long before thinking in our human evolution. The limbic system developed, you guys listen to this, eons before the prefrontal cortex or the thinking part of our brain. Did you hear what it says? Eons. And so emotions are adaptive, telling us all sorts of very important things. They tell us what is important to us, how much attention to give it. And Madison Avenue has known about this for a very long time. Advertising often seeks to grab us at the gut level and our feelings inform and affect many of our decisions. Darwin felt that our emotional system was highly conserved throughout evolution because emotions are so critical to our survival. The cave woman, listen to this here, and this is the reason why I'm telling all women how important that you are. The cave woman who loved her babies and felt fear when they were threatened was the one who survived and kept our species alive. She is the DNA strain that led to us. Developmentally speaking, feelings predate thoughts. The limbic system that governs our emotion develops before the thinking part of our brains or our prefrontal cortex. This is something that they've known, you guys, for a very, very long time. And so, God, we have so much stuff to cover here that I want to cover, but we don't have the time to cover it, you guys. And in actuality, when it says that Madison Avenue has known about this for a very long time, advertising often ceased to grab us at the gut level. Our feelings inform and affect many of our decisions. I think it's very, very important that we really learn more about how our brain, our limbic system, and our feelings and our emotions operate, and get the information that they never gave us when we were growing up. Emotional sobriety is about finding and maintaining our emotional equilibrium, our feeling retrostat, the one that helps us to adjust the intensity of our emotional responses to life. Emotional sobriety is tied up in our ability to self-regulate and to bring ourselves into and maintain our balance. But how do we achieve this living in balance? It is something we can train ourselves to do. If we didn't learn adequate skills of self-regulation in childhood, can we learn them in adulthood? And how do we fall in and out of balance? Science now can describe in comprehensive detail just what goes on in the body when we experience emotions, or to take it one step further, how our body works with our mind to experience, process, and create our emotional world. Science can also describe in some detail what happens to us physically and emotionally and when we fall out of balance. Ladies, I keep getting this flashing lights, you know what I mean, that it's time to pull this in some, you know. And so what I want to do is just a couple of things that I have on my personal agenda. What I want to do is by next month, I want to increase this class by asking you guys to share this information with your friends and peers in the community, so you can find out that everything that you thought about emotions in our brain and all this kind of stuff is different than what's been explained to us through the domestication and the dream of the planet. Our enemy, you guys, is the domestication of the dream of the planet. It's the Madison Avenue people that found out that they can use certain types of music, to hit us at our gut level, and then play the narrative behind us and draw us all the way in. I actually have, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Melissa, but I have one more thing that I want to share with you. And if without Melissa, you guys, we would be so lost. So the heart and brain communication, I want to share something with you guys that you probably don't hear. And so let me say this. This says the heart and brain communication. And this is from the science of the heart. Traditionally, the study of communication pathways between the head and the heart has been approached from a rather one-sided perspective, with scientists focusing primarily on the heart's responses to the brain's commands. So I just want to share something with you. It says that the heart communicates with the brain and body in 4 ways. The neurological communication, so neuroscience, and the neurological communications through our nervous system, the biochemical communications through our hormonal system, and the biophysical communications through pulse waves, and our energetic communications through electromagnetic fields. That's just something that I want to give you guys so you can understand that there's more to emotional sobriety, and there's more to the communication aspect. I see B's got wrinkles in her forehead. Said, wow, Alfred, what is this now? But the thing is that I come to educate you guys. And so this is what they don't tell us. That's the reason why this is a BIPOC enterprise here, the League of Extraordinary People. So we need to inform the people before we can educate the people. People don't need treatment centers. They need healing centers. And how about the truth? So right now, you guys, I'm actually going to turn the meeting over to Melissa so she can start with the procedure. But I also want to encourage you guys to post any comments that you have in chat, and we want your permission if we can use them to advertise our next sessions. But I'm gonna let Melissa get into that. Melissa, I'm turning the meeting over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alfred. Thank you everyone for being here today. And when we talk about these things kind of unfolding organically, right? Some of that also means that we're not going to get to everything that we plan to get to necessarily, and there's always next time, right? And so we can really pick up where we left off next month in our live conversation. And keep working our way through chapter 1. And when we get to chapter 2, it'll be exactly when we were supposed to get to chapter 2, right? And so don't feel like, you know, that we're going to miss out on anything, that this is really unfolding in the way that it's exactly meant to. And as Alfred said, if you have feedback that you are willing for us to be able to share, maybe put a little quote, you know, on another flyer for it, please feel free to send me a message with that or drop it here in the chat. We will be posting the recording, and then I'll also post links to the documents that Alfred was reading from that were outside of the book, just so you have access to that content as well, because I'm sure you're like, wait, our brain communication, what is this, Alfred? And so that'll give you some more context for those pieces. And before we wrap up here, I just wondered, does anybody have any questions or final thoughts or anything that you'd like to share out verbally?